Hello and welcome back. Last time we took a look at my new System76 Lemur Pro laptop. We took a look at the ports, the keyboard, and we even looked inside and did a RAM upgrade, and along the way we noticed the SSD was in the wrong M.2 slot. So today I'm going to give you an update on the drive, and we'll take a closer look at the hardware. I'll talk about my experiences with it, things I've liked, things I haven't liked. And I'm going to save my software experiences with Pop! OS for another time because I don't want to give you feedback that is from a limited experience. I need to put some more time into it and get better acquainted with it before I open my mouth and put my foot into it. So, as I had mentioned last time, the SSD drive was in the wrong M.2 slot, and System76's service data even had it listed incorrectly, and I'm happy to say that's now fixed. I did let System76 know that my laptop was built with the drive in the wrong slot, and I've heard from at least one other person that they've experienced the same thing. So make sure you test your computer when you get it if you've got the NVMe 4.0 drives. And I haven't heard back from System76, but hopefully they'll get that fixed for you. So the first thing I noticed when unboxing was that the power cord seemed a little short. So I'm going to do a comparison for you. One power supply is from the Lemur Pro from System76. The other is from a Chromebook laptop. $200 versus $1,600 laptop. Let's see what you get. Okay, here's the end where it plugs into the wall. Not too bad. System76 is actually a little bit longer. Let's keep going. Alright, we're getting towards the end where the laptop goes. And there's System76 tapping out. Oh, but wait. Wow. That is more than twice the cord on a $200 Chromebook. Now, is this important? That's going to depend upon your use. If you can stretch out your arms and touch a wall socket, then you're probably going to be okay. If you're only ever going to charge your laptop while it's sitting on a desk or a table where there's a wall socket within 3 feet, you'll be okay. However, if you ever need to plug this in from any kind of table or nightstand or desk where your wall outlet or your plug strip is at the floor, you're going to hate this, as I do. Now this portion is 3 feet long, and you could buy a new one. But that means you now have to have this brick with its amazingly bright blue light right next to where you're working getting in the way. This portion should be 6 feet long or longer. That's 2 meters or more. But it's not removable and replaceable. So this whole product is basically junk for want of another couple of feet or another meter of cable. Most tables are around 30 to 36 inches in height. So what I find is if I plug this in, then this brick is either sitting next to my computer and the cord is precariously stretched in a straight line to the wall outlet, or it is suspended in air like this, which is the most common case, or like this, pulling on my computer. It's a horrible user experience. Terrible. I don't understand the mindset. If someone from System76 sees this, enlighten us. What's the deal? Yeah, it's important. That's why I'm harping on it a little bit. So speaking of the charger, how does it perform? Well, I'm happy to say that it does quite well and that it doesn't draw any electricity from the outlet when it's plugged in but you're not connected to the computer, which is very convenient. However, it takes about 3 hours to completely charge the battery. I would have hoped for closer to 2 hours. It seems that it limits its charge rate to about 3 amps. So even though it's a 65 watt charger, About half of that goes to charge the battery. The other half is reserved for your system's use. So you might be only using 40 watts from your 65 watt power supply, and still sitting there waiting for your battery to charge, and it does seem to take forever at 3 hours. I don't know why they limited it to about 3 amps of charge rate. I think the battery should be capable of doing about twice that, but there's probably a reason somewhere, and that's what we have, and that's what we have to live with. Okay, so charging kind of sucks. It takes a long time with a really obnoxious cable, but the battery lasts a long time, right? Well, yes and no. When your computer's sleeping, as I just did with this one, it drains the battery at about 10% every 8 hours. So over the course of 3 days, it could take a battery from 100% charge to dead flat. Compare that with my 8-year-old MacBook Pro, it can do that for a month. So it's kind of a bummer to have your computer be charged up the night before, wake up the next morning, and 10% of your battery is gone and you haven't even done anything yet. The good news is the sleep state is pretty good. I've had a lot of success going into and out of sleep without any really random weird issues. The wireless comes up fine. I've got some NFS shares that they come back just fine. And I've even had some SSH links where they weren't sleeping for very long that came back. So I'm really pleased with the sleep apart from the power consumption. One of the reasons to buy the Lemur Pro, other than its sleek, ultra-portable shape and weight, is the large battery. It's 76 watt hours, which is pretty large for this class of computer. So hopefully the battery lasts for a long time. Unfortunately, while it is decent, I don't think it's as good as it should be. I think the same size battery in a different computer might actually get the 14 hours that System76 claims that this gets. I have seen a video showing that the previous generation of Lemur Pro could get 13 hours playing video in a loop. I can only get 6 hours of playing video, and that includes 1080p YouTube content or even a local MP4 file where I've even turned off the wireless and played locally from the solid state drive to eliminate any drain from the wireless. In either case, it was about a 6-hour battery life. Even if you intersperse some web browsing or some reading of content on the screen, working with code and editors, that kind of mixed use, I still think you're pushing it to get about 7 or 8 hours. I don't typically do that in a full day with this computer, so I don't have a good gauge of it, but there is no way you're getting 14 hours out of this battery unless you just sit it there with everything turned down and just let it sit and don't touch it. As soon as you start to use it, it seems to me like 7 or 8 hours is your maximum, and if you think you're going to watch videos on it on a long airplane flight, well, the flight better be 6 hours or less. So I'm hoping that in addition to the sleep state drain, there's something about the power drain of the system while it's operating that System76 can tweak and improve upon. Now, one of the things I was very interested in finding out was how quickly it wakes up from sleep compared to my old computer. So let's take a look. What we've got here are two sleeping computers. However, the Apple has two sleep states. If it's only been sleeping for a few minutes, it will wake up very quickly. If it's been allowed to go into more of a hibernation mode, it takes a little bit longer to wake up. The System76 only has one kind of wake up, so that's what you'll see. Now when the screen comes on the System76 laptop, you're still going to need to wait about 5 seconds before you'll see the wireless connect. Or you may not be able to see it from so far away. The Apple computer, it depends. If it wakes up quickly, then it will already be connected to the wireless by the time the screen turns on. If it takes a long time to wake up, then it too needs a few seconds to turn on the wireless. So, let's start the race. So there you have it. The Mac is already up and connected to the wireless. System76 just now connected to the wireless. So you can see that if you just put your computer to sleep for a minute or two and then come back, the Mac is a bit faster. However, on the whole, which I'm not able to demonstrate to you here because the Mac was awake a few minutes ago, is that when it has gone to sleep, say overnight, it does take longer to wake up. However, considering its much lower energy consumption while in that sleep state, I think that is preferable. The 11th generation Intel CPUs have a different sleep state than the previous ones, so I'm hoping that System76 can make some improvements in this area, because I do think that 10% battery loss over an 8-hour period, or about a third of your battery every 24 hours, is a lot of energy drain. I don't think that's normal. It equates to about a watt of electricity being drained the whole entire time the computer is sleeping. So how is that screen? Is 1080p enough? Do you miss 15.5 inches? Are the colors good? Yes, the colors are quite good. I compared it to my MacBook Pro, which I consider to be more sort of a reference in laptop screens. A very rich color, the equivalent of a 1440p resolution, and at 15.6 inches, it's got 1.5 inches on this laptop. The 1080p, of course, works quite well when you're watching video content that's 1080p, because there's a 1-to-1 ratio there. Where I don't find it really holds up as well is when you're reading text in a piece of software or on a website. It's just too granular and grainy and pixelated for me. It's not bad. Keeping in mind this is a smaller screen than a 15-inch laptop would be, the dots per inch is high enough that it's not obnoxious. Now, while this is 1.5 inches smaller on the diagonal than my old laptop, because the aspect ratio changes from a 16:10 to a 16:9 with this laptop, the change in screen size is not equal. For instance, the width of my MacBook Pro on the sides, it's only about 7/8 of an inch wider, or I suppose that's about 2.3 millimeters. Pardon me, centimeters. However, height-wise, it's 1.5 inches difference. That's nearly double. So it's actually this whole entire screen, including the bottom and top bezel, and then a little bit more. So while on the width, I don't see a whole lot of change, height-wise, I definitely feel more cramped. And I'll talk about this in the next video, but one of the ways I've been trying to combat that is to run more programs full screen and take a better advantage of virtual desktops and System76's tiling mode. So on the whole, I'm pretty pleased with the display, but if it were available, yes, I would take a 15-inch 1440p display over this one. But it's not bad. Overall, I'm really pleased with the look and feel of this laptop. It's about half the weight of my MacBook Pro, and I really underestimated how enjoyable that would be to just pick this up and carry it around without having that extra weight. It's really been a pleasure to use. It's the sides are more parallel and less rounded than the MacBook Pro. So when I'm grabbing a computer like this on the MacBook Pro, I feel like it's always going to slip out of my fingers. You know, especially in the winter like this when your skin starts to get dry. The surface isn't like, it's not really grippy, but it's not slick, and that makes all the difference. These feet are very soft and squishy, and what I really like about that is when you set it down, it's almost quiet, and it can bridge any kind of crumbs or grit that's on the surface you set it on. When you set a MacBook down, it's basically on top of the surface, crunch, crunch, grind, grind, hard plastic feet. My only concern is that they're being so soft, they're probably going to last for a year or two and then be shredded. So I'm hoping that these will have replacements made available in the years to come. Otherwise, it would be a really disappointing thing to have no feet. The trackpad is pretty generous for the size of the frame. It has a smooth feel. It's not as smooth as a MacBook Pro, so I'm guessing it's plastic. It works quite well. The only thing I miss is that when I'm in the web browser, I like to do the 2-finger slide left and right to navigate back and forth in my history. And that doesn't seem to work. It's either an issue with Firefox, GNOME, the drivers, I don't know. I do miss that. I haven't quite figured that out. But otherwise, the trackpad works in all the ways that I have used my MacBook Pro trackpad, which, I don't use a lot of advanced, 3 and 4. I can't do that. So, 2 fingers is my max. The keyboard is, it's a mixed bag of nuts. The keys are nice, they're laid out nicely, but the page up and page down keys, I am constantly mashing them on accident, unless I'm very intentional with my left and right arrow. And I was trying to figure out why that was so, because on my work laptop, which is a Dell, I don't have that problem, although it's got the same arrows. And it turns out that what they did is they increased the keypad area slightly and shifted these 3 arrows down so there's a slight gap between these keys, and that makes a huge difference. The other problem I've had is the escape button is quite small, and I will every once in a while fat finger F1. So I like to use Vim and GVim quite a lot for editing, and so I use escape a lot, and if I accidentally hit F1, it pops up the help, and then I have to quit out of that, and it's a little bit of a frustration. I was trying to figure out why have I never had this problem before. Well, as you might notice, these function keys don't line up one-to-one with the keys below them. They're actually a bit smaller. And that's not uncommon, but I think on this computer they've really taken it to the max. And also, again, I was looking at the Dell computer. Why has this not been a problem for me? The gap between escape and F1 is just a little bit larger on the Dell. So, again, a more thoughtful keyboard layout would make a lot of improvements. Other than that, I don't have any major complaints about, hitting the wrong keys, although I am taking a little bit of time to get adjusted to this new keyboard layout. There's a print screen and a home and an end key up here, which I don't really see using that often, so I wish they had made better use of that space. Also, as I press the caps lock key, you'll notice nothing changes. I have no idea, is caps lock on or off? No clue. Nothing changes in GNOME. There's no LEDs, there's no indicators of any kind anywhere on this computer what caps lock has done. And again, in VI, or Vim, that's very confusing, because if I'm trying to type lowercase I and I hit capital I, I'm inserting at the beginning of the line instead of the middle. If I accidentally hit A, it's the same problem. I'm appending at the end of the sentence instead of the middle. If I want to hit G, capital G, to pop to the bottom of the file to append to the bottom of its contents, it's little g. So, and then you hit it, and is that right? Did it actually trigger? Is it now off? It's a little frustrating. So those 3 are things that on a day-to-day basis can be a bit frustrating. The other thing I'm not wild about are the screen brightness and the volume keys being a little bit difficult. If you're right-handed, you can spread your right hand over the front between function and the brightness and volume keys and do it kind of one-handed. But for the most part, I feel like this keyboard was designed for someone sitting upright at a desk, 2 hands on the keyboard. And while that's great at work, I would think someone at System76 ought to take their computer home for the weekend and use it for other tasks. I can't afford a dedicated laptop for work and then a separate one for my leisure tasks. So this one plays YouTube and Netflix as well as runs compilers and Vim. One other small complaint I have about the keyboard, are that the commonly used function keys of screen brightness and sound are placed kind of awkwardly where it's difficult to find them in the darkness or when you don't have good sight to the keyboard. I would prefer if they were placed towards the outer edges where you could simply feel with your fingers and find the key. There's also no function lock, so I can't force this to be screen brightness instead of function 8 and function 9. So I'm forced to use either two hands or kind of a stretching of the hand. So if you have small hands, that's probably going to be a lot more difficult than it is for me. But there's plenty of times where my left hand is free and I reach over, but I can't do the motion. So I have to get two hands out there just to, tweak the volume a little bit on a video I'm watching, for instance. Now, one of the things I am happy to report is that I am able to watch 1080p content for an hour or two at a time without the cooling fans coming on at all. The first speed of the cooling fan is not too obnoxious, and I've had that come on a couple times when doing a heavy load. Perhaps the system is doing a backup in the morning using DejaDupe, or some indexing processes running in the background that loads up the CPU for a while. But even with all of the cores fully loaded during a synthetic benchmark, the fan didn't really come on all that fast, even after about 5 minutes. Now that said, I have had some times where I was doing a lot of copying of large files to and from the solid state drive, getting everything all set up, and the fan would come on to its low speed, and then would ramp up to its next speed, and then back down, and then up, and then down, and kind of hunt around for a while before picking one and then the other. And so there's no smooth, continuous fan speed. They're discrete steps. And that's very jarring and noticeable. So I'd like to see that smoothed out. The MacBook Pro oftentimes runs the fans at a very, very low speed. In fact, they're almost always turning at a very, very low speed. And you can't even hear it unless you put your ear all the way up against the vent. And so I think that's one technique that could be used also to help reduce the need to go from a quiet system to louder and then back again. One slight problem I have run into is that when I first started setting up my computer, every day, once a day for the first couple of days, the system would lock up, and it appeared to be an issue relating to accessing either the swap drive or the rest of the solid state drive, and I would have to hold the power button down to reset it. And then I had a period of 5 days where it worked just fine, and then it happened again a couple times. And then now I'm on day 3 with no problems. And I contacted System76 and I gave them the system log that I was able to find, where the system reported being unable to talk to the solid state drive. It looked like it tried to wake it up, but then it had trouble. And System76 says it looks like it's a bad drive, so they're going to send me a new drive. I'll do the swap, send them the old one. So far I'm really pleased with the promptness of their service. Now, one of the pieces of confusion during my last review were the USB Type-A ports. One of them is supposed to be a 5 gigabit port and the other one 10 gigabit. And unfortunately, I've not been able to resolve that question. I don't have any devices that use 10 gigabit, so I can't test it for myself. And there's still conflicting information both in the product labeling and on the website. Also, I was a little unsure about the power button. I did have to use it a lot more than I wanted to, and it kind of requires a little bit of fumbling and feeling. But when the system is working correctly, I never use it. I don't bump into it. It's out of the way. I think it's great. My work laptop, the Dell, has a power button that's just here on the keyboard, and I'm always bumping it by accident and putting it to sleep. And I'm not even sure if you can disable it. On this computer, I disabled the power button. So when the system's running, even if you press the power button intentionally, nothing will happen, until you hold it for, about 5 seconds. So how's the sound? Well, Not very good. These are down-firing speakers. There's a small grill on either side. And so if you have it on a hard surface like I have here, the sound bounces back up. And it's not too horrible. You know, it's a little thin and tinny, lacking in bass, but you can get by. If you're sitting on your lap where the reflective surface is either non-existent or soft, then it sounds like people are facing away from you talking, and it can be difficult to hear anything. So the next question would be, well, you know, okay, I'll plug in some headphones. That's how I typically listen, because, you know, with wife and kids around, you know, you kind of got to use earbuds or headphones. So when you plug in headphones into this, it does sound a lot better. You know, I didn't do a test to compare to, say, like the MacBook Pro, but just, you know, just by feel, I would say that it's maybe not quite as good as the MacBook Pro, but it's certainly doable. I listen to some music and some movies, and if you're not sitting there critically listening to music, it certainly does the job. You know, as long as you're not watching you know, a movie where you want to feel the bass thump in your chest, you'll be fine. And so I generally use these Apple AirPods just because, well, they came with my phone and they work well with my phone and my MacBook. It's just a standard 3.5mm plug. This portion here has the microphone, volume up and down, and you press the middle for play or pause. So when you've got that in your ear, it's really convenient just to reach up real quick. Unfortunately, it doesn't work through the audio jack of this computer. The microphone and the earbuds work fine. The controls here don't work. Not too surprised there. I'm sure it's some proprietary thing, or maybe I have to find the right driver. But one thing I have been experimenting with is this USB-C to 3.5mm adapter. Think of it as a tiny DAC and amplifier. And when I plug that in, it's recognized by LS-USB, and there's definitely some drivers for it. And I don't know if this is GNOME or something else, but sometimes it sees it as a microphone only or headphones only, and every once in a while I can get it to recognize both like it's supposed to. And most of the time it actually works with the volume control and the mute button. Sorry, the play pause button. So like I said, it's a little sketchy. I gotta plug it in, unplug it, play around with it, you know, maybe unplug this part, unplug this part. But once I got it working, it was amazing. And also having the headphone jack on the left side where the power cord goes, I kind of prefer that for the most part if I'm charging my battery. I like all my cords to kind of be in one area. So, you know, I can do something like this. Well, that's my take on the Lemur Pro lemp10 model from System76. You may not have agreed with all of my gripes and complaints, or some of the things I said was great about it. Maybe they weren't for you. And if you feel strongly, just go ahead and click that down in the comments and let us know. It's all personal preference. You won't hurt my feelings if you tell me I'm all wrong, as long as you acknowledge that these are opinions. As I mentioned before, in the next couple of weeks, I hope to put out another video talking more about the software and how I'm getting adjusted to it and how well it works with the computer and its hardware. So until then, thanks for watching and have a Merry Christmas.